the other thing that I want to try and talk about today, the other piece that I want to say to you is that I am interested in building a movement for social change through a lifetime. I'm not an activist generationally. I'm not an activist because I'm 20. I'm not an activist because I just care about one issue, and I'm not an activist that's situational. I'm an activist because the world isn't what I want the world to be. And until that world exists, I will be an activist working to change it. And I want to say that to you because when I became an activist, as a 15-year-old, I was a very poor kid that got sent to an unbelievably ruling class high school for my senior year because they had a scholarship. And my mother found this somehow. God knows how she ever found this. And they needed somebody that was poor, and they needed somebody that was from California. You know, I was poor, I was from California. So I literally flew from the trailer park that I was raised in to Lugano, Switzerland, to go to a ruling class school with the sons of the president of Costa Rica, kids that were ruling class kids whose parents had jobs in the Middle East, working for the oil companies, rich kids that were disaffected. I learned about class very quickly because I came with my, you know, I had read, my parents and I had read the book that told you what you were supposed to bring, and we believed it. So my mother had made all my clothes, and because you were only supposed to have like 3 skirts and 3 blouses, and she had made everything reversible so that I'd have more things to wear. And of course I got there, and the first day I watched all the girls come in with trunks of clothes, and you know, as they were chatting about having dropped into Paris to kind of pick up a few things before they got to the school. And I was there with my clothes that were reversible, and I had all matching tennis shoes. So I stood out in that school right from the very beginning. And I almost flunked out, but one of my teachers was a guy who was an immigrant, son of immigrants, first generation, and he was the only one I felt I could talk to because I was flunking, and I felt so stupid. And he said to me, he handed me the Communist Manifesto. Thank you, Gil. And he said to me, it's not about you being stupid, it's about you not meaning, you should not be here. This is not an institution that was meant for you. And that's why you're struggling in the way that you're struggling. I then left that school and joined his family, who ran a hot dog stand in New London, Connecticut, and we're all in the Communist Party. And hung out with Lebanese communists in New London, Connecticut. And then went to join the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee Freedom Summer, doing civil rights work in the South. And I tell you this because, you know, I got involved as an activist through a set of very complicated occurrences in my own life. And I was lucky enough to be at a moment in time in America where a social justice movement was exploding. And so I had ways to find myself in that movement that I think has been the gift in my life, and not something that's now easy to do. If you're not at a university or in a social justice or equality organization, there's no movement now to be a part of. It's a very difficult and different kind of time. But because that is my history, the other thing that I wanted to say in starting to talk about aging is that I was 16 years old when I started doing that work. People that were older than me, significantly older than me, 10, 15, or 20 years, were people that I couldn't even imagine myself talking to, let alone becoming. They just were, they had had experiences, they'd done work, they had, you know, they seemed to have a kind of knowledge and confidence that I couldn't imagine myself having. And I didn't look at them like I was going to become them. I looked at them in awe, but I couldn't imagine being them. And I think one of the issues that we've got in our movement now is that it's very difficult when you're a younger activist to imagine yourself through time being a person doing this work, having impact, and building relationships both across generations and across experiences. My friendship circle is not simply made up of people who come from my history and are my age. I have a lot of friends that are in their 20s. I have a lot of friends that kind of cross every age because of the way that I do the activism that I do. But most people I know do not know people that are significantly older than themselves in the LGBT movement. So let me ask all of you here to raise your hand. Who here knows somebody 20 years older than yourself that's LGBT? Who here knows somebody 40 years older? Interesting. Actually, that's higher than I would have expected, and that's fabulous.